Welcome everyone. Thanks for joining us. I hope tonight that we're joined by a lot of parents, a lot of caregivers, teachers, and I guess everyone in between. Thanks. We've got a couple of people there in the comments. Thank you. This one's going to be a beauty, and I'm actually nervous about this because I'm probably going to go stiff on this end of the microphone because I'm going to be intently listening more than I normally do because I'm going to get so much out of this myself. So I hope that everyone's jumping on because this is going to be a ripper. I just want to say thanks to our sponsor, the Resilience Agenda. I've got one of them here. Thank you to Hadley and the crew. As I said, the Resilience Agenda is changing the meaning of mental health, and imagine a world where people are inspired to think of their mental fitness like they do their physical fitness, and to know the tools and strategies that make learning about our own mental health that are more relevant, engaging and inspiring. And this is what this agenda does. It's a diary, there's the camera mat, full of tips, tools and strategies to help on our daily schedule. So we're giving away one of those Resilience Agendas every episode to someone just that engages well throughout the episode, and I'll put that in the mail as soon as possible and get that to you. I want to do a good shout out tonight too to Lululemon, an important organisation that we work with here at Mindful Oz. We're the Here to Be partner of Lululemon at the Chadstone store, and I just want to say big appreciation and gratitude to the Lululemon staff and everything that they do. And it's what a way to be in an awesome set of activewear, but also a brand that aligns with being involved in community, in fun, and looking after everyone around them. So I'm just a big advocate for everything that Lululemon does, and very grateful for the time and effort that they put into Mindful Oz. Also to everyone's jumping on, thanks for engaging. I just want to, just before we start, this won't be as heavy as some of the other episodes. This is going to be a lot different of conversation tonight, which will be really good. But if anyone is experiencing suicidal crisis or has family members that are going through those minor behavioural health challenges, remember to contact Lifeline on 13 11 14 or Beyond Blue on 1300 22 46 36. And that leads me to Yelland, Heather Yelland. So glad you could join us. I'm going to run through this, H. I'm so glad the technology ended up working out for us. But despite the hustle and bustle of daily life, Heather believes that all anybody really wants is to love and be loved, and to be known, loved and got for who they truly are. This is fundamentally what drives all aspects of her work and her companies. And Heather believes that discovering and expressing the truth of who we are and embracing the difference we were born to make is at the core of us being loved and making a difference in this world, which I wholeheartedly agree and have seen firsthand from the mentoring that I do get. With formal training in art, psychology, family, systems, theory and business, Heather has been a people specialist for over 30 years. Her ability to get to the heart of what drives and inspires people, what limits them and prevents them from realising their fullest potential, has been the foundation of her work in Australia, New Zealand, the UK, the US and Asia. You've been everywhere, H. Heather is a leading authority in values-based leadership and is a respected thought leader in the international arena of consulting, business and corporate innovation and coaching. She's also the founder and director of my favourite, the highly acclaimed Green Super Camp Australia program, offering personal leadership, academic acceleration and environmental awareness to children aged between 10 and 18 years. I'm thoroughly missing Green Super Camp Australia, bugger you, COVID-19. That place is full of love and joy, and I wish I could be back there right now. So we'll get to that throughout this episode, no doubt. But having worked with such iconic brands as Mars, Nestle, Westpac, Origin, as well as working in major departments of government and impacting the lives of over 22,000 individuals through her programs and workshops, Heather is an expert at specialising in growing people and personal development, and she's done exactly that for me. So I'm excited about tonight. I'm going to roll through a few more accolades, H, because I think they need to be said. You've been recognised as winner of the Most Trusted Australian Business Leader in the Australian Trust Awards. You've been a finalist in 2 other further categories in that, in the Most Trusted Learning and Education Provider and the Most Trusted Customer Service. You've contributed in best-selling books like Legacy, which I've got in front of me, The Power of Small and Millionaire Coach, where you've helped contribute to writing a chapter on how to achieve a millionaire mindset. You're a renowned, world-renowned, sought-after international speaker who has travelled right across the world, as I just said, with your message and frameworks on 4 of the 7 continents, and headhunted by the world's leading speaker trainers to deliver speaker training for businesses in Australia and UK. But more importantly, what I want to get to tonight is as the stepmother to six children, Matt, and playing mother to many more of us, including myself from time to time. Heather also knows what it means to be in the trenches, juggling multiple demands and dealing with the reality of family, business, and community commitments. Perhaps because of this, she has built an innovative company and attracted an extraordinary team of people who are equally committed to her legacy of providing services that help develop children who believe in themselves, engaged in inspiring adults, and thriving and innovative businesses. As you said at the top, each of us experiences levels of inequality in our life in some way, but the more we feel a sense of personal empowerment, the greater our ability to take risks. When we experience new things and step out in a way that shows the world who we are, it's then that we discover the difference we were born to make. I love that, and I love you and everything you've been able to do for me along this journey. I'm actually really nervous tonight that I will stutter and go stiff on this end, because I'll be listening for all the learnings that I can take away from this. You create absolute magic for so many, and I know you will tonight. So, H, welcome to Confined by Walls, Not by Heart.
Thank you, Maddie. Absolute joy to be here. Sorry about the technical difficulties, but really great that we got it together in the end and that we're able to go live and hopefully share some things that make a difference in people's lives.
Love that. And we do have a lot of people joining us right now. So, send all your questions in. The less time that I spend speaking, the more time that I spend learning will be awesome for me, but awesome for everyone else. So, throw in your questions. Let us know you're watching. And we look forward to hearing from you. H, I want to start with how are you today and how are you finding this bizarre time?
Look, to be perfectly honest, I'm secretly loving it. Well, actually, not too secretly, Maddie. To be honest, I guess I spend an awful lot of my life in airplanes and Qantas lounges and corporate office buildings. So I'm absolutely loving just having the time at home with my family. It's not great for business, but it's very good for the soul. I think that I kind of feel I've been seeing some things go around on social media saying, Mother Earth has said you've been very naughty. Go to your room and think about what you've done. And I feel a little bit like, yes, it is a really challenging time and very confronting for lots of us in lots of different ways, I think. But if you take a really positive approach to this, then we have an opportunity to pause and find poise, from which I think new innovations and new ideas and inspirations and possibilities can grow. So no, I am feeling pretty good about it, to be perfectly honest.
I join you on that. I'm enjoying this freedom to create and to work on myself, and I know you're big on that. But talking about exactly what you just said, this is a different time and difficult for a lot of people. This is quite the pendulum swing. Do you want to talk to us a little bit more about exactly that? We've gone from having normalities and routine for some people to actually, having our life turned upside down for most of us. So do you want to talk to that a little bit more about that pendulum swing and the effects that it has?
Yeah, I do, Matt. I think it's really important for people. There is a pendulum swing here. Normal doesn't look anything like what we know it to be, and I think one of the things that we can overlook, and unfortunately, I don't hear a lot of voices in the noise that's going on around COVID and its impact on each of us individually and as families, as well as businesses, communities, and so forth, countries indeed, is that there's not a lot of discussion about the fact that the impact initially of lockdown is almost sort of a temporary high. There's almost this sense of relief that the immediacy of the demands of everyday life as we used to know it has left, albeit momentarily or temporarily, but we get this little, this is nice, and we get to be at home and hang out with people that we love a lot more than we usually do. Unfortunately, what then happens is that there's a settling period, then an adjustment period, and then we hit what I like to call the oh shit category, when everyone starts to say, well, am I going to be on top of my entire family the whole time? How do I run a business, be a school teacher, be the canteen lady, have some time to myself, be a partner, be a daughter, be a sister, be all of the things that I'm supposed to do every day now, and do it with a routine and a system and a structure that means that everyone is getting their needs met. and we're still making a positive contribution to the world. And I think we really need to stop and reflect on that pendulum swing, because one of the things that happens is that our stress levels escalate. And obviously, when you're feeling more stressed and there's a bit more adrenaline in the system, everything else is impacted as well. So often we don't sleep as well, we eat more, or we eat things that we're not used to eating, which then means that there's a hell of a lot more toxin in our system, and so on it goes. I just think it's a time that people need to be really gentle with themselves and with the people around them. You know, do whatever you need to do to make sure that you don't annoy the hell out of yourself, and you don't let the people with whom you're sharing your home annoy the skin off you. Really kind of ask yourself, where am I at in that pendulum swing? Am I down the sort of the madness and the mayhem and the moaning end, or am I up at the method and meaning and magic end, where, you know, I can understand that there's things that I can do, there's actions I can take, and there's systems and processes and schedules and things that I can put in place that mean that we coexist happily, but that we're also still achieving a sense of fulfillment and contribution and the things that drive us as human beings.
Yeah, I love that. And that's an important place to start, because there's going to be a lot of people that are listening to this that are stuck at the bottom end of that. We're still in our first two to 3 weeks for some people, maybe more for some people, where we're still trying to work out what's going on. There's unknowns, there's the uncertainty. We don't know when it's going to go back to normality. Do we start this? Do we just wait and hold off? All these unknowns. So what are some ways in which we can try and help people through getting, I guess, left foot in front of right foot at this stage to get the ball rolling and to get some flow back into our life?
Yeah. And look, whether you're in a household with one person, or whether you're in a household with half a dozen or more, is somewhat irrelevant. I think the first thing is to create some structure. By and large, as human beings, the more there is structure, the more we then have flexibility. But when we have an inordinate amount of flexibility and nothing but flexibility, we just feel like we're out of control. So there have to be some boundaries, some parameters to set a context. And I think it's really important to set up a system or a process or a structure, a schedule, if you like, that works for everyone in your house. In order to do that, you need to reach some agreements. And I'm a great one for facilitating conversations with everyone in the house, so that everyone contributes to the agreement. So what agreements are we going to have? So, for example, we have 2 children in the home with us here, and our youngest one is, she loves free time. So she was getting up at 6:30, starting her schooling at 7, so she's done by about 10:30, and then she's got the rest of the day free.
Hey, that's
She's
good thinking,
super
though.
excited about that.
I'd be excited
But
about
by
that.
11 o'clock, yeah, by 11 o'clock, she's bored. So, she just wants to, excuse me, have you got any time to come and play? Well, I'd love to, sweetheart, but not right now. So we just sat down and we said, okay, how's this going to work so that we can all have time together, but we can all get the things that we need to get done. And so we set up a schedule. So school normally starts at 9. So we just said, all right, we'll all start at 9. We would normally start at 8:30, but we said, right, we'll all start at 9. We'll break at 11. We'll actually step away from our computers or our calls or whatever it is that we're doing, and we'll have 20 minutes together. Then we'll work until 1. Then we'll stop and we'll all sit and have lunch together. We'll do that outside wherever possible. So we just kind of created a structure and a routine to the day. And it's surprising how well things have gone. I mean, there's not a lot of conflict in our house anyway, but the general rub of things that go on, I think, is exaggerated given the intensity of what's happening at the moment. The kids can't see their friends, and nor can we. So having a structure and a system in process is important. Reaching those agreements is really important. And then having some discussion about what will be the consequences if we don't reach those agreements, if we don't stick to those agreements. So if it's nobody brings devices to the kitchen table or the dining table, if you turn up with your device, what's the penalty? And the really great thing is when you involve children in setting up agreements like that, they almost always go for something really radical. Like if you accidentally bring your phone to the table, you're going to have your phone taken off you for 2 weeks. We're like, really? Or maybe the first time we could just ask you to remove it. And if you do it again, then maybe we could take it off you for 24 hours. But I think that, you know, we forget in all of this that even though most of our children have an incredible level of resilience, it's a scary time for them too. You know, even just simple things like I know that our eldest daughter, she's talking about the importance of the fact that her brain is wired to learn when there's other people around. And I thought, oh, that's true. I've never really thought about that. So she said, so I just ring my friends and they all jump on, you know, FaceTime or whatever it is that they're doing. They don't talk. They don't really interact. You know, you're there and I'm here and I'm doing my work and you're at your end doing your work. But it means that when I look up, there's someone there. And normally I would have had an expectation as a parent that if I go in there, there's no one on the phone, she's concentrating on what she's doing, you know, all of the usual expectations. And it's just become a cage that I've locked myself in.
Yeah, so trying to bring back that normality to as close as what they would get if they were back at school.
Correct. Yeah. Now, you know, I mean, as parents, we can tell whether or not we're being fed a line or whether they're raising a really valid point. And on this
pretty good at it, right?
yeah, well, that's true. But she was making a really good point about the importance of just having someone there. And I think, you know, I've done a lot of these interviews in the last couple of weeks and fairly consistently sent the message that it is actually really important that we ask the people that we love, not just our kids, but our partners and our neighbours and all the rest of it. Anyone that we encounter, I think the most powerful question in the world is this one. Would you please tell me what it's like to be you?
Yeah, I did steal that from you on the last episode with Lockie Stewart, and he's just tuned in. So, Lockie, that's who I got that off. I think it's one of the most powerful things we can ask someone, and I did learn it from H.
Yeah, no, and it is so important. You know, I sat the kids down the other day and I said, right, I need some advice. So we're putting a whole lot of things on our platform at the moment, and I need some young people's insights and advice in #Corona or ISO life, as they're calling it. What's it like to be you now? And they just talked about it. They said, it's really weird. It's weird. Everything is uncertain. Everyone seems to be kind of scared. If you walk down the street, which we make them do, you know, at least a couple of times a day, go around to the park and exercise their legs and the dog and so forth. People go out and around you as if you've got, you know, rabies. and you know, they just talked really honestly about what it felt like to be them. And talked about what was important. You know, one of the girls said, the highlight of my day is when we come out and we all sit down together and have lunch as a family.
How good's
I was
that?
like, what?
That wouldn't have been said 6 months ago.
Absolutely not. And I wouldn't, if you'd said to me, what is one of the things that your kids look forward to at the moment? I would never have said that. But there you are. So it's the value of asking the question about how is it for other people rather than always focusing on ourselves. Now, that's not to say we should ignore or deny our own needs, because obviously we need to take care of ourselves. Maddie, you know very well that I spend a fair bit of time traveling. And so, you know, I'm often, even if you travel with us often, please take the time to listen to the safety briefing.
You know
I could deliver it. Yeah, I could deliver it myself. But you know, they always say if we go down, fit your own oxygen mask first. And I think there's no way I do that. I actually have 8 children, and there's no way I would, if one of the kids was there with me, there's no way I would fit my own oxygen mask before I fitted theirs. And then I thought, okay, well, what if they were all here? And then I thought, well, a couple of them are annoying me at the moment, so they could go last. You know, there's always the favourites, so they could go. No, but then I started thinking, well, why are our children any more important than anyone else's? You know, all the people sitting around me when I'm taking those flights are somebody's children. And so it really got me thinking about the importance of us taking care of ourselves first. So I'm literally getting up at 6 every morning. I'm doing my meditation. I'm walking 10K. And then I'm ready for the day that by the time I get home, the kids are up and about and we're into it.
Yeah, and I think that that's really important to touch on, because there's going to be a lot of parents and a lot of mums especially that probably are staying at home with them at the moment that are trying to be the best teacher, trying to be the best mum, are trying to stay on the good side, but what they're missing amongst that is the opportunity to not feel guilty for looking after themselves.
Exactly. And I think that, everything needs to change. Our expectations of our children, our expectations of ourselves need to change. This is a unique opportunity for us to transform the way we think about things. And, someone's just commented there, Maddie, that they're setting up their child's workstation for when they are back at school. That's a really important thing, like having a clearly defined space in which everyone in the family can work, whether it's at the dining room table or whether it's in their room or wherever, but just so that you can make a delineation between that's a workspace and this is an eating space or a play space, or you can break that up a little bit. But the other thing that occurs to me too is the opportunity or the possibility right now to really reinvent what education is about. As well as schools do, and as hard as our principals and teachers work to try and deliver wonderful education to our kids, the reality is we're using a system that's 200 years old and frankly is a bit burnt out. And we need a really big paradigm shift when it comes to thinking about education.
It might be a nice little gap for people to understand exactly what the teachers do go through every single day and how much they do have to teach. And again, it's pretty broken in the ways in which we try and develop or deliver everything that we try and deliver in a day to these kids.
Yeah, but at the same time, Maddie, maybe what's happening at the moment is that we're present to our children for a prolonged period of time that we wouldn't otherwise be in their lifetime potentially.
Yeah, absolutely.
Maybe what's happening is that we're starting to realize, which is absolutely in line with what you teach, that who we are as beings, who we are as souls in the world is so much more important than whether or not we're straight A students. I've met some kids who really struggle in the current academic environment and yet are just beautiful young people. And then I've met some straight A students that frankly I thought were self-entitled little schmucks that could do with that could do with the good leveling. So, I think that there is an opportunity. It is strange, it is different, it is unique. I get that. But maybe now's the time to provide education that our kids otherwise wouldn't get. Our kids have learnt to change a tyre on a car. They've learnt to cook. They've learnt to budget. We've been through the values exploration process with them. We've done all sorts of things that they wouldn't otherwise get to do if they were in a standard learning environment.
Yeah, I just had a couple of teachers principals actually reach out to me today wanting me to be involved in delivering mental health to their students from home. So, these are fantastic opportunities to, you're governed by probably what gets sent home. But as you said, there's ways in which it's our turn now, and there's ways in which we can teach them the things that we think are relevant as well during the time. So I think what an opportunity that is.
I think also, Matt, it makes us all really think about, education isn't a school's responsibility. Education is everyone's responsibility.
Absolutely.
Whether we are educating our kids about how to be good community members, whether we're educating them about positive financial acumen, it doesn't really matter what it is. I think there's a roundness of being or a wholeness of being that is possible for our kids to be exposed to at the moment that generally wouldn't be the case.
I love reading that from Kylie. She's just commented, like getting your kids to dig footings for the water tanks. How good's that?
That's right. Good on you, Kylie. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, sorry.
I was just going to say, Maddie, that kids get an enormous sense of joy from being able to contribute toward things that, make a difference in everybody's lives. And especially if you're putting in footing for a water tank, then let them put their initials in it and then bingo, forever that's part of the story of what they did during COVID-19.
Isn't it? And it gets that gratification to know that they've done something well. And I think that's why we've got to celebrate the small wins that we do have while we're in this time, because as we've seen, there's a lot of stress and angst and worry and panic going on. So to be able to celebrate the small wins and have these laughs, like Well, I'm reading make compost, plant seeds, chop firewood. How good's this? Like, when do we have we're ticking off a lot of jobs for ourselves that would have otherwise had to be done after hours. So
Absolutely.
I think that's what you can do in this time, is to look at these things as hugely positive for that we wouldn't have had the opportunity to do. More time to spend with kids. How good's that?
And I think that, as human beings, we are wired for connection and belonging. There's no doubt about that. So we have a unique opportunity to connect with and create belonging for our children and our family members at the moment that we rarely have. But I also think that, this is causing a great deal of disruption. It's causing economic disruption, political disruption, social disruption, community disruption. It's also causing a level of disruption about how we think about what's important.
Mm.
Matt, I'm sure you've heard me more times than you'd care to count say, how would you live today if you knew it was your last day on earth?
Mm.
And I think we all too often, we chase the elusive dollar, having a whole lot of limiting beliefs about whether or not we deserve it. We go after something that really just creates a rat on a treadmill and has us running for something that, isn't fulfilling, isn't meaningful. Here's a unique opportunity to sit back while we allow the world to heal a little and do our own healing.
Yeah.
Take the time to reflect on ourselves and really start to think about who we are. I think that part of the disruption that's happening at the moment, and I know it's struggly and it's painful and it can be a challenge for people because we're not used to sitting in silence with ourselves.
Mm.
But
Absolutely.
here's the opportunity to do that.
Yeah. Great.
Can't remember who it was that said it, but someone once said that you're only lonely if you don't like the company you keep when you're alone.
Absolutely. You got to learn to love yourself before anyone else. But also, like I was just reading that, loneliness. I've seen a lot of people say they're bored and they're lonely in this time, but loneliness isn't a lack of physical connection. Loneliness stems from when we feel that we've got no shared meaning with anyone. So what a time to reach out and to share meaning with other people. Just because we can't physically touch them doesn't mean we lose that sense of belonging, I guess.
Yeah, and I think, Matt, one of the things that makes me such an admirer of you and your work is that you do so many things in the world, as do we, where we have no clue what audience it reaches.
Like this.
Like this, exactly. So we don't know whether there's 50 people on tonight or there's 500 people on tonight, and nor does it matter, because this is a natural expression of the difference that you and I were born to make. It's not about, will we get enough likes, or will we get enough hits, or will we get enough views? Who cares?
Yeah.
If there's one person, well, I can see that there's stacks more, but if there was only one person on the call tonight and something in the conversation that you and I have here caused them to think differently or approach things in a different way, then isn't that a fantastic contribution?
And
doesn't that create for them a completely different experience of connection and belonging with what we're saying?
Yeah, well, and again, what an opportunity to start some of these meaningful conversations that we don't often start while we've got everyone under the one roof, where there's no escape, where there's an opportunity to dig deeper into some of these things.
Absolutely. I think it would be great. I look forward to living in a world where instead of once a year we have an Are You OK Day, that once a year we have a Don't Give a Shit Day. But every other day we check in with people, we reach out to people, we ask for support and assistance, we offer support and love to others, and we get back to the essence of what makes us human beings, not human doings.
What an opportunity to do that with, again, connection and belonging, the two things that are fundamental for a human being to exist. And we've got the opportunity now to slow down and pause and reflect about how good we're valuing those two things in our life. And I mean, we've got these things in our hand that we can connect with the people that we're missing, but we've also got the opportunity to strengthen those relationships there at home with our kids, with our partners. I mean, I said the other day on the podcast, for me, it was like living in prison. And I say that in a positive way, not a negative way, that you can find to the four walls that you've got 1 to 2 hours of phone time a day that you're allowed to have. You've got 1 or 2 hours of exercise time in the exercise yard, and you've got 1 or 2 hours in the kitchen, which is the same way it works from my understanding when you get be locked up. And what an opportunity to I know that there's a lot of people that don't agree with what I'm saying here because they want to bathe in the stuff that they've been experiencing and the traumas and the difficulties of what this COVID is bringing. But what a fantastic opportunity we have to grow and be something better than the person that's now in COVID when we walk out of COVID.
And I think there's a key distinction in there, Matt, and that is that we're not defined by what happens to us. We're defined by what we believe about ourselves because of what's happened to us.
Yeah.
And I think that's really important. Why is it that, you know, one man is incarcerated in Auschwitz and withers and dies, and another man incarcerated in Auschwitz comes up with a completely new mathematical theory that informs the way we understand mathematics through generations?
Yeah. Is that the same guy that turned 100 yesterday?
No, it's not, but a very good example, just the same. Yeah. I think one of the things that, you know, I often get phone calls from distressed parents, and lots of times when people send their kids to Green Super Camp Australia, it's because they want to outsource the disconnect between young people and their technology. How do you actually create that disconnect? And you know, most of the young people that come to, well, in fact, all of the young people that come to Super Camp, I fall in love with. There's no question of that. But I've been told to stick my head in interesting places when on day one I've said to them, okay, could you pop your phones in the bag here and we'll make sure that they're kept safe. We'll give them back to you once a day. You've been witness to that indeed. And they look at me as if, like, take my left arm, don't take my mobile device.
Yeah.
Okay. But by day 3, they come to me and they say, thank you. Like, seriously, thank you for taking that device off me, because now I'm present to myself, I'm present to the other people I'm connecting with, and I'm present to the environment in a completely different way. But I think what's happening here is because the only form of connection we're able to have at the moment, and that's been the case for, you know, 3 or 4 weeks now, and will probably be the case for another 3 or 4 weeks as a minimum, the only connection that we can have, other than the people that we walk around when we go out to the park to have a bit of a run around, the connection is all electronic. And even our kids, who are very adept, especially our older girl who's 14, who are very adept at electronically based connection, even those kids are saying at the moment, we just want that human connection. We want to see our friends. We want to feel our friends. We want to hug our friends. We want to piggyback our friends. And I think, you know, there's another pendulum swing in here, that once upon a time they thought the only form of connection they really wanted was online. And now that they've got nothing except online, other than with the people in their household, they're craving that which they previously took for granted.
Yeah, I hope it still exists when we get out the other side of this. I hope that people are still craving those hugs and that human connection when we get back out here, and don't go back to the normalities of what we were prior to this.
Yeah, well, I think that's an individual responsibility, as you said before, Maddie. We've all got to do the work while we've got the opportunity and the possibility to do it. But I also I'm a famous advocate of this saying: you cannot unknow what you now know. And now that those young people know how important that physical, human, soul-to-soul, heart-to-heart connection is, they can't unknow that. I think that coming out of this terrible and frightening disease that, yes, has taken many, many lives and threatened many others, and caused a huge amount of angst for so many aspects of our culture and our society, like anything, like war, like tsunamis, like natural disasters, etc., we either look for the very best in it and find the essence of who we are in the face of this in a different way, or we throw our hands in the air and turn ourselves into victims to the circumstance. Many, many people's lives are going to be very, very negatively impacted. If you'd said to me a month ago, Heather, in 1 month, I want to interview you during the time where you'll be sitting still and there'll be no opportunity for you to deliver too much of what either of your companies do. I would have looked at you like you had two beautiful, spunky heads.
And I would have been gutted too.
And here we are.
Yeah. Enjoying it.
Exactly. And looking for the opportunity and the possibility in it.
So how can people get to that place where they see that light and they see the positivity in each situation? I mean, Australians are 7 times more likely to find a negative than a positive in any situation. What can we do for those people that are struggling to experience this as something more beautiful than what they believe it is right now?
Well, I think that one of the biggest issues for us as a culture of people is that we are utterly terrified of our own vulnerability, Maddie. Which is why I love you and your work and the raw base honesty of it. You sometimes say, oh, actually, I'm not that polished. I don't want you to be polished. You know, we've been polishing a whole range of different approaches to supporting mental health for a long, long time. I've been in this field, well, never mind, for 30 something. I was about to out myself. I've been in this field for a I've been in this field for 10 years more than you've been alive.
Yeah.
And it's still not changing.
Yeah.
So, you know, polishing the stone on our current approach to mental health and supporting people to promote their own well-being and empowering them with the strategies and the skills that they need to be able to take charge of that. What we're doing, by and large, is not working.
Yeah.
So, excuse me, I think that this is an opportunity for us to really develop a different sense of comfort with our own vulnerability. We're kind of being forced to look at it.
Yeah, it's great.
We have to. And it is good. I think in some cases it will scare people and shake people.
Yeah.
But some of us need to be scared and shaken in order to see the new possibility. But
I'm seeing a lot more people reach out to me during this time than I ever have. And I don't think that that's because we're going through COVID. That's because we're actually having to deal with our own shit because we've got nothing else to do.
That's exactly right.
Sitting on the couch right now when my head's going a million miles an hour is killing me. I'm going to reach out to Matt. And people say, oh, your inboxes must be full because of the pain and difficulties that people are experiencing. I don't believe it is. I think it's exactly what you just mentioned. It's we've got no other choice right now but to recognize, because the world's so slow right now, just how much shit we've got to deal with.
Yeah. And I think it's a unique opportunity. You know, you are this moment. You are not defined by the feelings that you're having. If confusion comes up, it's coming up because it's there to be released. Just hold the space, look at it, go, wow, there's my confusion, and I love that. And you'll find that it disappears anyway.
Yeah.
You know, I think that as you say, Matt, there is a really important opportunity for us right now to be able to develop a greater muscle at just being able to sit with ourselves, just to be with ourselves, to dare to sit in silence and discover and learn about and be curious about who we really are and what's the difference that we're born to make. Because too many of us, altogether too many of us, are absolutely on that treadmill. And this has caused us to stop. If you look in the mirror and you don't really like what you see, that's okay. Just look and go, okay, well, here's what I'd like to do differently in order to create a different experience of myself in that context or in that arena.
It talks to this message, this photo coming up here, H. Does that come up to you?
Yes, it has.
That was exactly what you're talking about there, the ability to know that something exists, but to not kick back and push off it and ignore it. But rather than bring it in, acknowledge it, that it's there, accept it, and be able to deal with it.
That which we resist persists.
Yeah.
That which we embrace dissolves.
Powerful.
Most of us are spending an awful lot of time pushing against the stuff in ourselves that we don't want to see, which is exactly what that photo, that's a terrible photo, by the way, but yeah, that's exactly what's happening there. I'm making the point that if you push against something, then you stay in engagement with that. Someone said to me the other day, not liking yourself is like owning an ugly donkey. But fighting against not liking yourself is a little bit like having that donkey on a lead that's tied around your neck.
Mm.
And I thought, oh, that's a powerful metaphor. Yeah. Instead of that, bring it towards you and take the opportunity to have a look at it. But have a look at it as if it's a child that you love. I said this to someone the other day who said, I feel like there's this part of me that's just pushing against the lack of freedom. And I said, okay, where does it live? And he said, in my chest. And I said, great. And what do you recognize? What's familiar about that experience? And he talked about a childhood experience. He said, well, this situation where I felt like I was pinned, I was stuck and I was locked in and there was no escape. And I said, okay, so learn to love that. He said, oh, I can't love that. And I said, imagine that this is a little you now wanting the big you to hold a space so the little you can just feel what they feel. If a small child, I asked him, how old were you when that happened? And he said about 8. I said, okay, so if an 8-year-old young boy came walking up to you right now and said, I feel stuck and I feel scared and I feel overwhelmed and I feel like I can't escape, what would you do? Would you say to him, oh, mate, no, I can't deal with you right now? Or would you say, you know what, I'm going to use you for fuel to make a massive difference and make it millions and millions of dollars? Is that what you would say? Or would you just say, oh, sweetheart, I'm sorry you feel like that. Come here. Would you like a cuddle? Come and sit beside me and tell me what it's like to be you.
There's that question again.
But we don't do it for ourselves.
Yeah.
I think there's an interesting thing that happens, Maddie. We're all very good at being available to support everyone else. I'm always there for everyone else. And, whether it's a sick mother or an unwell neighbor or the kids are hurting or my partner needs me or whatever, give. But without realizing that there's an enormous joy and sense of gratitude and contribution for me about being able to give. How come then I don't create that opportunity for other people in my life? How come I don't afford them the opportunity to feel as though they're making a really significant contribution to me?
Yeah.
And I'm talking metaphorically because I'm actually, now in my adult years, much better at that. But I wasn't that great in my 20s.
Yeah, well, it's something that I've struggled with because I've had that reflection myself where I was giving so much to everyone else in the world, but the people that I originally set out to help and impact on this journey was the thought of the mates that I'd lost, and I didn't want to have to sit at the back of any more funerals. Yet all of a sudden, I was helping every single other person in the country apart from my direct friends and family. And I failed to make them aware during that time that how much I appreciate them and I guess checking in on those that really mattered to me because I was so content on helping the masses of people out there instead of those that I really set out to start this journey because of.
And it's interesting because one of the things that I imagine happens for you, Maddie, which is very similar to what happens for me and for our team, is that when people reach out and ask for support, the very first thing we do is acknowledge the courage that it takes to do that.
Oh, yeah. We did that last night on with the episode with Lockie. There was some really great shares last night. And I think one of the guys jumped on last night and said, I can't say 3 good things about myself. And I had to interrupt him and say, mate, I've got one for you. You just stepped right into vulnerability in front of this. This will be seen by 3,000 people and you've just jumped straight in. I mean, that's an incredible feat in itself. And yeah, sometimes we can't acknowledge those things about ourselves.
Yeah, it's interesting because I sometimes get the center out of a toilet roll. I like to refer to it as the shit tube.
Yes, I'm looking for one in here.
Yeah, I'm looking for one. The nearest I can find is a jar.
There you go.
But the problem with looking down the shit tube is that all we can see is shit. The other problem with looking down the shit tube is that the stuff that exists outside of that tube, we can't even see.
That's brilliant.
Can't even see. And so it really does, it affects the lenses in our glasses. The reality is that if we're only looking at the problems, the challenges, the struggles, the things we don't like about ourselves, then we can't see the things for which we could be grateful or the things we could acknowledge and celebrate and appreciate in every day. In the year of 2020, when, I think it's interesting that we talk about 2019 or 2016 or whatever, but we talk about 2020 as 2020. So I started thinking, well, is it 2020? When I think 2020, I think about vision. So what if 2020 was the year of vision? And you've got two eyes, that's it, and then you've got your third eye. So I was thinking, well, there's the idea of impact. There's the idea of income, because you've got to have some of that in order to make a bigger impact. But then there's the idea of that third eye, that inspiration. And I think what happens is we only focus on the one eye, we focus on the money. We don't focus on the inspiration and the impact, because we can do a hell of a lot of things that speak of inspiration and impact without money. Some of them, yes, we can do more of with money. I don't know who it was, but somebody famous once said, if you want to help the poor, don't be one of them. Yep, I get that. But equally, sometimes in our thirst to just focus on the money, we forget about the inspiration and the impact, which means 2/3 of the picture we're not even seeing.
Yeah. So many workplaces and organizations out there right now that have postponed staff wellness. Well, what a time it is when you're not going to cut into sales, or, you don't have your staff in store that I'm not going to come in and take up their time. You're not going to come in and take up their time. We're doing it from home. They're not doing much else. It's an opportunity to get our teams together and to invest back into our wellness, whether that's an individual or whether that's on a team front. So that we, again, when they come back out of this, they're going to come back to work and there's not going to be that rust. They're going to be ready to rock and roll, instead of, this is going to be, as you said, it's another pendulum swing when we get on the other end of this, and we're going to go back into a different world, and that new world will be the norm.
It's a little bit like Google in Australia did an experiment where they cut their 5-day working week to 4. And they did extend the hours a little bit, but they effectively reduced everyone's hours, left them on the same pay, but reduced everyone's hours, and productivity went up by well over 20%.
I bet.
And it's because we're coming at it with a fresh approach. If you're looking down this every day, you can't see the possibilities and the ideas and the innovations and all of the new and wonderful things that will arise if you can just find that capacity to sit in silence. Just to be still. We are a culture of people. We're actually probably in some ways a world of people who have lost the ability to just be still.
How do we practice stillness? How do we get to that place where we have that solid base or solid foundation of acceptance to know that that's what we need to be doing?
Yeah.
I feel like we scream it all the time, and there's so many people out there speaking about it. What's the shift?
Well, here's the magic pill. There isn't one.
Yeah.
No, look, I think that there are a raft of things that we can do. And I guess that, we don't all wear the same size pants and we don't all like the same colours. So everyone is unique and individual. But there are some generic elements, I think, to the pie of well-being and wellness and self-love. The first is learn to be comfortable with your own vulnerability.
Yeah.
And recognize that, in fact, it's not a place of weakness. It's actually the place of your greatest strength, because it's when you're stripped bare of all of the crap that you project all over yourself and out into the world, and you just stand there with an absolutely open heart, being who you are. The second thing that I would say is learn to be respectful and gentle with yourself in the way you are of others when they're struggling. Because we're often much more gentle with others than we are with ourselves when somebody that we love comes to us struggling. The third thing I would say is use this time to come to know who you are. Like if you were reading the story of you, if you were reading the story of Matt right now, what are you finding in the story? Treat it as a curiosity. Treat it as a bit of an adventure, instead of looking and going, oh, well, I don't like that, and I don't like this, and I don't like this. Look and say, well, here's the things about me that I really like. Here's some of the things about me that I'd like to learn to dance with, and then ultimately to change. The fourth thing I would say is hold a space for the little you that is struggling. Most of the struggles and the challenges that are coming up for us at the moment, because we have to face ourselves. Somebody made the comment a little bit earlier about we don't have the social mirrors to look at anymore. We only have ourselves and the people nearest and dearest. And even for me, I do this stuff, as you know, Matt. I'm a bit like you. I spend a couple of hours a day reflecting on my learning and showing up as my best me each day. But even I'm finding that I'm discovering all sorts of things in little corners that hadn't been swept out.
Yes.
And a buddy of mine in America, a guy by the name of Kyle Cease, he has this way to cut through. Somebody's just said they like my straight talking approach. Well, you want to check out Kyle Cease. He talks about he talks about the fact that we've lost the art of just being truly present to ourselves. And he said, whenever something shows up that we don't like about ourselves, just identify this thing. Okay, so I don't like that I'm so grumpy, for example. All right. And when you notice it and you notice that you don't like this thing, then say, and I love that. So I notice that I'm grumpy and I love that. Because instead of that push that you just put the picture up of a moment ago, that then goes away. So you don't get defined by being grumpy. You get defined by being Heather, who sometimes chooses to be grumpy.
That's the difference between Heather and H.
Yes, that's right. Yes, that's right. I'm H unless I'm being really grumpy, and then I'm Heather. Yeah, that's right. But I do think that there's point 4 is really use this opportunity to come to know yourself differently. And the final comment that I would make, Maddie, is if you don't see the good in you, then there's 2 things you can do. 1, identify what the limiting belief is that stops you from seeing the good in you, because there will be one. And it's like having a pair of glasses, both lenses being shit. And all you can see when you look out there is more shit. And the second thing is, if you don't really trust your own view of you, ask some people that you love what their view of you is, because they wouldn't love you if you weren't an amazing person.
Yeah, absolutely. I just want to backtrack a little bit, H, because we've got a lot of people out there that are probably tuning in tonight that are parents. And we've brushed on Supercamp, and people will see the logo up the top there and the comments rolling down the bottom. That environment in which you create at Supercamp, the environment in which, as you said, they show up at the start and they swear and carry on because they're there, and their parents have handballed them over.
Oh, I hate my parents.
Yeah, I don't want to be here. F this, F that. And then you take their phone, so you just get double the amount of F bombs dropped. But then come 2-3 days in is all it's taken, or even by the end of day 1, we got kids that are going, I don't want my phone time. I don't want to talk to my parents. I want to just be here and I love it. How can we create those environments at home?
Yeah. Well, it's an interesting thing, isn't it? Because in a sense, there are not too many places I'd say this, Maddie, but I'm hoping that because the people that are on the call tonight are probably fans of you, that they get it when I say this. But I think that in many ways, what we do at Supercamp is like a mini version of what we're actually doing or dealing with the coronavirus. Because all we do is put people into a situation where they are absolutely forced to face themselves and engage with themselves and understand and believe in themselves in a different way.
Yeah.
It's a whole lot more than that as well, and that is unconditional love and really, really solid boundaries. And you can't have one without the other. And I'm sorry that I'm moving around, but I've just realised that my device is about to run out of power, so I'm making a few changes here.
The beauties of technology.
I'll just go and plug me in so I stay positive.
No.
But yeah, it's about creating an environment where we can love kids for who they are, where we can construct a whole lot of little activities through the day where those kids win, and they win in their own way and in their own time. We create an environment that has really clear boundaries. You know, I've often, and you'd be one of them, Maddie, I've often heard the facilitators say, how does this work? Seriously, H, how does this work? You're the toughest on the kids, and yet they love you the most. Why is that?
Yeah, they do.
And, you know, as parents, I get it. I'm a parent as well. As parents, setting the boundaries and constantly reinforcing them, it gets tiring. It really does. And sometimes we're too tired and it's just easier to not have the argument.
Is
But
it?
your kids need boundaries. They
Mm,
need to know that they are safe. And even when they push against them, they still need those boundaries. If you don't have them, your kids will feel completely at sea. And not boundaries where sometimes you reinforce them and sometimes you don't. If you kids don't stop yelling, I'm going to take your phone away for a week. And the kids keep yelling and you take the phone and then 20 minutes later they say, oh, I'm sorry, Mum, can I have the phone back? Sure you can, honey, there you go. No, 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 no. Because what you're teaching them is to not respect the boundaries and to not respect the agreements. You know, I think it's actually much more simple than we need it to be. But I think the biggest factor at Super Camp, Matt, which is an opportunity available to all of us at the moment,
mm,
is just to be present to our kids and the people that we love in a way that they feel really seen and heard and got. And
mm.
my fundamental belief is that all any of us really want is to love and be loved and to be known, loved, seen, heard, and got for who we truly are.
I've just thrown
I'll
that up.
let you go.
Yeah, I've come prepared, HG, because I mean, I say it all the time. I think it's so important, and I guess where I wanted to go with that is like this love that we provide. I mean, or the love that we should be providing these environments, like you said, we can mimic this right now, what we do at Super Camp at home. But it's also modeling the right behaviours in which we want our kids to follow. We are their role models, and these kids are sponges. They follow and do whatever we do at some point.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk
Hashtag
about
the kids are watching.
kids are always watching.
That's it. Yeah, absolutely. And I think, look, you know, what you're saying is true, that we do need to be able to model really positive things to our kids. But it's not just our kids, Maddie. Um, I was talking with a member of our high-end Ripple Makers program last night, and she's having all sorts of challenges in a work context at the moment, and they're kind of gunning for her, really, if I'm honest, and playing some really ugly games. And she said, "Oh, you know, I feel like I need to fight back." I said, "Don't fight back. Don't fight back. Just be a stand for your truth. You know your core, you know your why, you know your values, you know your 10-year obsession, which is the, you know, doing law by heart. Like, you know what it is that really matters and what your truth is. Stand in that
Mm,
and don't shift. Be unswervingly committed to that."
mm.
Which she did 2 or 3 days ago. And when I spoke to her last night, she said, yeah, it's really interesting to see how things have shifted because I've turned up differently.
Yeah, it's been the same journey for me. Same journey
Yeah,
for me.
absolutely. As for me, you know, if I think, God, the kids are grumpy today, the first thing I do is take a cup of tea and go and sit outside in the sun and go, right, how am I contributing to them being grumpy?
Mhm.
Am I not being present? Am I not listening? Have I not paid enough attention? Am I grumpy? Am I short with them? You know, take responsibility and be accountable to ourselves first. Someone commented a minute ago that you know, when you set boundaries, you create respect. You absolutely do that, but you also create trust.
Mm.
And if you've got respect and you've got trust with the relationships that matter the most to you, then you're a rich man no matter what your bank account says. In fact, I like the description in my companies. We talk about the fact that wealth is what we have and what we've given when the money runs out.
Mm. I love that. I love that. We've got some more people. If anyone's got any questions for HE, just while we have a pause here, send them in. And by HE, I mean Heather, by the way. This is how I talk to HE. Yeah, please flood your questions in. If you're a parent, caregiver, guardian, or you've got anything, pick the brains of Heather while she's here. Absolutely. One of the things I want to talk to about, HE, is the well. I mean, we've talked about Super Camp and talked about the environments in which we create there, which, I mean, as you said, it's a great opportunity to create them right now in the time we're living.
Yeah.
Tell us more about the Wells. There's going to be a lot of people that have been tuning in over the last few nights on Mindful Oz, and they're just really scraping the barrel, wondering where to turn, what's available for both their kids and for them. So, as you said before, it's a matter of tell us what it feels like to be you. You've created this on the basis of that. You want to tell us a little bit more about it?
Absolutely, and I think, Maddie, from our perspective, one of the challenges of this current time in which we're living is there's so much information out there, and yes, we've got a whole lot. We've got a whole lot of access, a whole lot of information. Like we can get access to all sorts of information at the moment, and everyone's saying what COVID has given us is a lot more time. To be perfectly honest, I'm not finding that. By the time I'm the teacher and the boss and the partner and the house wife and the lawnmower and the tire fixer and all of those things, there's a few challenges associated with it. But I think what all of us want is, if I happen to be on social media, and I confess I outsource that, but when I do my own, if I notice anything that comes up with Matt Runnels or Mindful Oz on it, I pay attention. And the reason for that, Maddie, is because we've got a trusted relationship. I know very well you're going to provide quality information and quality commentary. So what we've done with the Well, which is really just a resource platform effectively, is we've put on there the very best of the information that we share with our community, that we share with the kids at Super Camp, that we share with our Connection Zone participants, the Power of You participants, just about everything that we do. We've loaded all of that in multiple forms. So some of it is downloadable PDFs that people can print out or save if they want to. Some of it is click and play things. There's information in there for parents. It's called the Parent Zone. Yeah, there you are. Well done.
Is that the right link?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, if you've got the old Green Supercamp, Australia, greensupercamp.com.au page up, the Well is actually a tab on that page. But there's a parent zone, a young people zone, and an inspiration zone. The inspiration zone is largely curated information. So you've got time to read, but you don't know what to read and you don't know who to ask. So what we've done is we put a whole heap of stuff in there: reading for pleasure, reading for growth, podcasts, TED Talks, YouTube videos, magazines, all sorts of things that we think are quality pieces of information for anyone that's committed to using this time to dig deeper into an understanding of who they are and access their own soul in a different way. But importantly, we also know that parents are under a huge amount of pressure. So we've got a whole lot of information on there, most of it in bite-sized chunks. So very rarely will you find anything on there that's longer than 20 or 30 minutes. When it is, it'll say so. But really good information. How do you set up agreements with your teenagers? What do you do if they don't stick to those? How do you set up boundaries and maintain those? How do you know what your kids value? How do you know what you value yourself, what your highest values are? And how do you make decisions in alignment with that? How do you map your energy? Some of these fundamental questions that we don't often make the time to contemplate and to search and delve into in the way that we can at the moment. So we've put it all together there on the Well, and given people the opportunity to. So basically, it's a membership site. There's new stuff going up there all of the time, but you could go on just for 1 month if you want and get access to whatever the hell you want and then jump off. And I mean, we've made it stupid cheap because we know that financially, not everyone is in a good position at the moment. So I think it's $97 a month or something like that. But equally, if the financial circumstances were really prohibitive, shoot a message to our team. And as long as you've got a good explanation as to why it's a struggle, we'll give you free access. Like, what does it matter? We're not in it to make money. We're in it to make connection and belonging.
Yeah, I love that. Love that. What you don't ask for, you don't get. Isn't that right, H?
That's exactly right, Matthew.
A wise woman once told me and kicked my ass for it. What are some of the
Well,
best tips that you've got right now for those people in isolation? I guess parents looking after kids, I guess there's got to be a couple of tips there. I know we've touched on a lot of it, but maybe even some tips of self-care. What would some of the things be that H.E. Yelland would be doing if you could only pick a couple in such a difficult time for some?
yeah, look, I think that, the old oxygen mask first
Yeah.
thing is fairly important. So the first thing that I would say is you have permission, you don't need anyone's, but you have permission from yourself and from the context in which we're living at the moment to do something for you every day. At least one thing. And my suggestion is that you make that one thing take at least 30 minutes.
Yeah, minimum.
Now, if you're going to do that, though, don't say, okay, you kids, I'm sick of you. I'm having 30 minutes to myself. Because in that scenario, 5 minutes will feel like 30 to your kids. And every 5 minutes, they'll be going, Dad, now? Dad, are you done now? Dad, are you done? And that'll drive you nuts. So let them know first thing in the morning, okay, guys, between 5 and night, I'm not going to be available to you, or between 6 and 6:30 or whatever. I'm going to be doing something for myself in the same way that you have. So, we've said to the kids between 5 and 6, you're going to have to do something, because either the older kids that are not living in the house with us, we're going to have drinks with them virtually, or we're going to catch up with friends on Facebook Live, or not Facebook Live. What do you call it?
Zoom or Hangouts. Yeah.
Yeah, Hangouts and those sorts of things. So, but set those agreements up in advance. So do something for yourself every day and try and ensure that that takes at least 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Second thing that I would say is set up agreements about the structure of the day. But when you're having those breaks and you're with your kids, be incredibly present to them. And at least once every day, ask someone that you love, tell me what it's like to be you at the moment.
Love that question.
It's a great question. One of my best. In fact, I'm thinking of having T-shirts made with it.
I think you need to. When I told Lockie Stewart about that, he said, he asked me one of my questions on the podcast. He said, what would something that you'd like to be asked? And I said, I'd like to be asked what it feels like to be me. And I guess maybe some of the things that I was feeling for so long wouldn't have been suppressed as long as they were.
Yeah, absolutely. And, it's sort of, I don't know, I feel a bit sad sometimes, Maddie, that it's actually that simple.
Yes.
I feel sad that it's actually that simple.
But
how often are we so much more focused on trying to tell everyone else how it is for us?
Yeah.
Than it is that, thank you, Leanne, as do I, Dal, than it is that we actually take the time to be fully present to somebody else. You can't ask someone a question like, would you mind please telling me what it's like to be you right now, and not be completely focused on their answer.
Yeah.
And look, if you've got kids at home, here's one for you, Leanne. If you've got kids at home, frame it up in this way, because tell me what it's like to be you right now if you've spent the last 5 years not being interested at all what's going on for your kids, is going to make them go, what's going on? You're doing crack?
Yeah.
All of a sudden you're interested. So you might need a little bit of a warm up, a little bit of runway, something like, you know what, I don't think I've ever taken the time to truly understand what it's like to be you. So I have a question for you, if you don't mind. Would you tell me, what's it like to be you right now?
Yeah, give it some.
But if you've got kids at home, kids love to give advice and very, very rarely get the opportunity to. So I said to our girls the other night, you guys, could you come and sit here for a minute, please? I need your advice.
They would love that.
Oh, they so loved it. And in fact, what happened was my partner went and got a glass of wine, and the two of us sat there having a glass of wine, listening to their answers to the questions that I was asking. We were there for about an hour and a half. I just got a little piece of advice about something to put up on the well. I was building a resource for parents to put up on the well. No. But I thought, gosh, we haven't run a super camp or any of our usual programs in this COVID world. So I don't know what it's like to be them right now. So I thought, well, I've got two experts in the house. I'll just ask them.
And isn't that the thing? We struggle to get the answers out of or to engage in conversation as our kids go through them stages. where they don't want to talk to mum and dad and they'd rather hang out down their end of the house. What a way to start a conversation that they just won't shut up.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah. And look, I mean, if you've got slightly older teenagers, they may not be quite as enthusiastic in their response. Remembering that, item 1 in their job description: ignore your parents. Item 2 in their job description: defy your parents. Item 3 in their job description: do anything except hang out with your parents.
Yeah.
Right. And that's the same in every household. That is not a fault in your child, and that is not a flaw in your parenting. That is the nature of the reconstruction of their development. Oh, actually,
yep.
Kylie's just
Kylie's
said,
nailed it.
My 15-year-old boy's response is, I don't know. I have a classic answer for you there, Kylie. So whenever somebody says to me, I don't know, I say, I understand that you don't. But if you did know, what would you say?
I think she said that to me millions of times. I might be that 15-year-old boy.
And sometimes I have to ask you as a parent. And sometimes I'll even say, okay, yeah, I get it. You don't know. I hear you. You've said you don't know 5 times. I tell you what, let's play a game. If you were to guess, what would you say?
Yeah, I've heard that one.
Stay in there.
Yeah.
Stay in there. Keep asking the questions.
Yeah.
And if they don't answer it today, say, okay, I can clearly see that you're focused on something else, sweetheart, so I'll let you go for now. And I promise I'll ask you again later because I really do want to understand. And then you walk away.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they go, what the hell happened there?
And
you just keep asking. And eventually they're going to answer you.
Yeah.
And I think it's also okay every now and again, Matt, to say, you know what? I don't know what it's like to be you, sweetheart, but I think it's a great question. And if you don't want to answer that first, let me answer it. Let me tell you what it's like to be me. And what it's like to be me right now is I'm an incredibly proud mum because I can't believe how well you're doing self-directing your own learning. I can't believe how well you're doing making sure that twice a day for 20 minutes you're doing your exercise routine with your friend on your FaceTime. I can't believe how well you're doing at making space for your little sister to come and connect with you, even though I know at 11 she's annoying for you sometimes and you just want to hang out with mature people, and for me it's an absolute joy to see that happening.
Yeah.
One thing that I would love to recommend that I've only just thought of, Maddie, I saw someone make a comment before, and this lady is a really big fan. Sally is a really big fan of this exercise. It's called the Walk of Truth. And it's something that I do to help connect people with the essence of their actual connection. So I used to use it when I was working as a therapist with warring couples who, had come to therapy because they were trying to decide whether or not to leave one another or, throw ice at each other or whatever. And I would just say to them, look, before we get too far into the conversation today, there's something I'd like you to do. Could you just go and stand side by side and put your arm around one another's backs or waist or whatever? And I just want you to educate me, if you will. Just start at the very first time you met. And you go first and tell me what that was like for you. And then when they finish speaking, we'll just say thank you, and then it'll be your turn to tell me what that was like for you. And it's a bit weird at first, but it helps take people back to reconnection with what it was that they actually fell in love with in the first place. That stuff generally hasn't gone away. It's just been covered up with the daily grind and all of the things that COVID has made us so present to. But it's like that with our kids as well. I actually, Sal sending some love hearts. I actually did it with Sal. I was at her house one day and I said, okay, come and stand here. I want to tell you about the first time that I remember meeting you and what that was like for me. And then she did the same thing. And then we just stepped forward one step. And I said, my next memory of you was doing this. And then she gave me her next memory. And I learned all sorts of things about how she sees and understands me, just as she did how I see and understand her. And because you're side by side, it doesn't feel like it's quite as, confronting or challenging or something. You're not talking at the person, you're talking out in front, but you're talking with the person as you walk. It's a really cool thing to do with your kids. And it doesn't matter if it's in a chronological order or not. I mean, a lot of us, unfortunately, haven't even ever spent the time to tell our kids what it was like when we found out that we were pregnant, or when they first came into our lives, or, you know, how unbelievable we felt when we looked at their little faces for the first time. Or, you know, in my case, because they're all stepchildren, how unbelievably grateful I am that I get the chance to parent these beautiful kids when I couldn't have my own.
Love that.
You know, it's just a really lovely process, journey, walk of connection.
It's similar to the one, and you're going to shoot me for not knowing the title of this, but what we do at camp with the 2 people and we ask the 3 questions.
Yes, it's called the affinity process.
There you go.
And we now ask 4 questions. So tell me something I don't know about you.
Yeah.
Tell me something you like about me.
Yeah.
Tell me something you think we have in common. And tell me something you wish for both of us for the future.
Yeah, how good's that? That's another one that would work perfect for child and parent, or get the siblings to do at home while they're in this schooling environment.
Absolutely. And, you know, I mean, I've done that with people that I've been friends with, I don't know, for 20 years, and I still discover new things about them. So, you know, someone about 2 months ago, just before I went to London last, someone said to me, oh, now I'm just going to crack out a bit of camp here. H, tell me something I don't know about you. And I said, oh, I was the schoolgirl and then the regional trap shooting champion when I was 16. She's like, yep, there's something I didn't know about you. Yeah. I said, by the way, I grew up and now guns scare me. But as a kid growing up on a farm, we had to use guns, and I was the trap champion. There you go.
I love those ways in which to communicate. And that leads me to my next point. And I've seen a comment from Beck come up. What if they don't understand their own feelings? Which also leads me to a question that keeps regularly getting asked on these episodes and to me all the time, wherever I go and speak, is how can we bring comfort to that, to getting our teenagers that are struggling? This is more of the darker side of the work that we do at mental health, with mental health. How can we get our young kids to that place of comfort, or to make them feel supported enough to know that they can talk to mum and dad about their thoughts, feelings, and emotions?
Yeah, great question. And look, it's a really complex answer, but I'll try and simplify it if I can. The first thing is we model it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I get very concerned when people say, oh, we never fight in front of the kids. Fighting constantly in front of the kids, not helpful. But having arguments in front of the kids so that they can see you argue, they can see you be respectful in the way you resolve that argument, and they can see you come to a better understanding on the other side of it. Kids learn to ride a bike by modeling. Kids learn to write by modeling. Kids learn to interact by modeling. So they learn their emotions by modeling. Don't go away and have your crying somewhere so that the kids don't see. Don't cry in front of the kids constantly. But when you're sad, sit with the sadness. When the kids come to you and say, hey, are you all right? What's going on? You can say, actually, sweetheart, next Monday, it'll be 4 years since my dad had his accident, and I'm just feeling really sad about that.
So important.
And that then gifts them the opportunity to be there for you in the way that you're constantly there for them. It makes them feel important and special and valued and appreciated. The second thing that I would say is don't always expect emotions to be things that are put into words, even for teenagers. Sometimes we will just show our emotions. We won't talk our emotions. Talking emotions is a very grown-up concept. Little kids don't say, I really want the chocolate bar, and if you don't let me have it, I'm going to create a tantrum just to see whether I can determine where the boundaries are. They won't. They'll just scream and go, I want the chocolate bar. You know, we've got this adult concept that emotions are to be expressed verbally. If your child walks out and slams the door, they've expressed their emotions.
Yeah.
And look, unless they splinter the door or pull the hinges off, let them have it.
Yeah.
Then when they've defused a little bit, then you want to be able to go back and sit with them and say, sweetheart, I really appreciate that you let me know that you were angry when you slammed the door.
Yeah.
I'd love to hold a space now where you can talk to me about why you're feeling angry.
How's that? So many people just will follow them in after they slam the door, and it just puts fuel on the fire. And
Yep.
I just think what a great learning that is. What a great learning that is.
It's like in really simple terms, Maddie, and it is a gross oversimplification, but always be asking yourself as a parent, as a partner, as a colleague, is what I'm about to do going to add water or fuel?
Yeah.
And if it's fuel, just walk away and breathe.
Yeah.
And then come back and say, I'm sorry I had to walk away. By the way, I'm a big fan of letting people know if that's what you're going to do. I just need some space, okay? I'm not quitting. I just need some space. And then you walk away, because then the other person knows what it is that you need. But the other thing is that there are actually opportunities for particularly younger people. So if your child is under the age of about 11 or 12, get them involved with things that help them to find that and develop that emotional vocabulary. And just going back to the well, Maddie, one of the things that's on the young people zone on the well is a series of stories that help kids to identify and name their feelings. In fact, read by our beautiful Tari. Tari literally sits up in a great big armchair and reads the kids the books, the stories, as if they were sitting there on the couch with her.
What better person to have you reading the book than Tari?
Absolutely. Yep.
I'm going to join in the well.
And the good thing is that most of the books are sort of between 7 and 15 minutes long. So it also gives you 5 or 10 minutes to yourself to have a cup of tea. But there's about 10 or so of them in the series called How I Feel. Sit with your kids and help them to articulate. But instead of saying, what's going on? Why are you slamming doors?
Yeah, no.
That's fuel. The water version of that would be, sweetheart, thank you for letting me know that you're angry. Can I hold a space where you could just talk about what it is that's going on inside you? Because I'd really like to try and understand what it's like to be you right now.
Such powerful learnings.
Absolutely. And look, there's a nasty one. This one's not going to land so well with everyone, I don't think, but I'm going to say it anyway, Maddie, because this is your show and you're famous for that. Know your own stuff. We have a concept in our company called KYOS, KYOS. Know your own stuff, otherwise known as knowing your own shit. That's it. Know your own shit and stop spraying it on your kids.
Yeah. I think this is, I've had so many of these conversations, I'm not sure if it was last night, but I think it's a beauty because I get asked all the time when people have that disconnect between themselves and their kids, or they get that most famous Australian answer to how you're feeling, I'm fine, and they just give up on it. It's not a matter of, it's exactly that. It's not blaming them for not owning up and owning their situation. It's about stepping back and going, could I have said that better? Could I have done better? Could I have shown up better? All these things to do with ourselves instead of all of us. I hear it all the time in my work and at Mindful Oz. Everyone goes, well, he doesn't want to answer me. And there's no self-reflection there about why he doesn't want to answer you, because we're so worried about them blaming them, the person that's unwell, than actually look within at the person who is well and dealing with the situation about how we can be better in answering it. And I that's probably one of the most common things that I hear everywhere I go is, I've done all I can and they're not answering me. Yeah. And all I hear in that is blame, blame, blame.
And look, sometimes they won't, and that's okay. But as I say, if you were trying to get a message to a neighbour that they needed to trim the tree and you'd talk to them about it over the fence and it didn't work, you'd talk to them about it over the fence a second time. If that didn't work, you'd write them a letter.
Yeah, how powerful letters.
And don't give the child the letter and say, right, come sit here, read this and tell me what you're feeling in response to it, because they will go and lock down. Put the letter somewhere that they'll find it. Tell them why you love them. Tell them the same things as you would share with them if you were doing the walk of truth. But then just put the letter somewhere they find it and leave it alone.
And don't wait until it hits rock bottom before you send a letter. These letters are something that we have access to pen and paper all the time, that we can be sending and making sure that they know exactly how we feel. And if it's not sinking in by saying, I love you, find other means and ways in which to show it. It's always the right thing.
On that subject, Maddie, it is a poignant time to mention the value of knowing your the love language of the people in your home, particularly your nearest and dearest. Go and Google the number 5 love languages, the 5 love languages. It's an online survey that you can do, and it'll tell you which of the 5 love languages is your dominant style. If your child is physical touch, then it doesn't matter how many times you use words to say, thank you, sweetheart, I appreciate you and I love you. You actually have to physically touch them.
Yeah.
If your child is acts of service, you could physically touch them and use kind words, but they actually need you to do things to demonstrate to them that you love them. So knowing those languages is a little bit like the difference between me speaking English and you speaking Spanish. If I'm speaking to you in English when you speak Spanish, that the risk is, I mean, I wouldn't think, gee, you're stupid. I'd think, you speak Spanish, and I'd learn some Spanish. But I think to help to reach out and to build those connections with your children, that's a good way to do it. That you can understand those fundamentals and basics as a starting point.
And we might save ourselves a few dollars as parents, because we might not have to be spending all the money on gifts to reward them all the time, because that might not be how they actually find the love and appreciation in it. I know that receiving gifts from me sits on the bottom of my love languages. So I'm really struggling at the moment because mine's physical touch and quality time, and I live by myself and work by myself in isolation. So I'm hanging out to finish for that reason only.
Absolutely.
Actually, I'm going to run through some quick questions for you, and this is my time to ask them on the spot and from the heart. Who's the best teacher on your journey of wellness? On your journey, who's been your best teacher?
Well, a teacher that I've not yet met, Brene Brown. Brilliant, priceless, love her. Teacher that I've met, probably my mum.
Love that. I've got one up on you, H, because I've met Brene Brown.
Yes, I understand you have. In fact, didn't you open for her one day or something?
National Behavioural Health Conference in Washington in 2018. I didn't even know she was attending it.
Yeah, there you go.
Sat front row. Brings number 2, brings most joy to you. What brings most joy to H?
I think being present to people, like creating a space that enables and allows that really deep human connection. And it doesn't matter whether I'm doing that with my beloved partner and kids, or whether I'm doing that with the young man that serves me at Aldi. You know, just making a space where my intention is that each interaction I have with someone leaves them feeling just a little bit better about who they are. I don't care whether they like me or not, but I care a lot about whether they like themselves more at the end of our interaction.
Love that, H. Love that. I want to know H's biggest achievement. What do you hold up the top for you in terms of achievement? And this will be tough. You've done a lot. You've achieved a lot. You've impacted a lot of people.
That's a tough one. Am I allowed to have 2?
Yes.
Okay.
I don't know. H.
No, I actually really, I love the work. I love this notion of charity, that charity is about planting a seed that'll grow a tree in whose shade you'll never sit.
Wow.
And so one of the things I'm most proud of is in terms of our achievement as a company, or as 2 companies and as teams, is the number of young people that we support overseas. So we provide educational opportunities for young people in Cambodia, in India. Oh, look at all those dear little faces.
Actually, I've got a better one for you.
In Africa, and in Indonesia, and dear wee boy, yeah. This young man,
little kids that we get to hang around. Wow.
Yeah, this little Bradley boy. This little man is from Myanmar, and I was going to say the second thing of which I am most proud is the impact we've had on the lives of about 2,000 or 3,000 young people in Myanmar, and helping to shape the future leaders of that country. Beautiful people, beautiful country, despite the fact that it has some challenges, as we do ourselves. And I'm enormously grateful to have had the chance to not only go myself, but to take members of our team over and give them the experience of being involved with those beautiful children. And probably the third one there's a few of them right there. Nothing quite like running a training for 350 kids whose second language is English. But I think the other thing is just being a good enough mum. I don't know that I'm an exceptional mum, and I make plenty of mistakes along the way. But I am a good enough mum, and I'm enormously grateful that I have the opportunity to parent the kids that I do in the way that I do, and not just our own 8, but the 3,000 or 4,000 that I get to interact with every year.
I love that. I know we've touched on Brene Brown, which she'll probably come up again here, but I know there's some other ones that have played a big role and might lead you into who you have on Tuesday or Friday. Tuesday, so I'll get that wrong. Who do you look to follow, to gain knowledge? Who do you love in this field of mind and behavioural health? Who do you turn to? Who do you look to? Who do you love and appreciate?
Look, I'm an absolutely avid consumer of all sorts of different media, Maddie. So if you're talking about magazines, I love Dumbo Feather, because they have all sorts of commentary about various aspects of our social and community lives that I think are so important for us to be aware of, and our environment and so forth. Yes, Brene Brown, big fan. Very big fan of Kyle Cease, spent CEASE. Used to be a comedian, but decided to turn that into transformational comedy. And he's a brilliant and inspiring man. I'm a fan of Simon Sinek. I'm a fan of him because of his capacity to articulate things that I think lots of times people struggle with. And I'm a very big fan of Masami Sato, who's has become a very dear friend of mine, who is the founder of B1G1, or Buy One, Give One, which is the philanthropic platform that we choose to support, because every dollar that we contribute to the 500 or 600 projects around the world, including here in Australia, actually goes to that project.
Yeah, I think a lot of people would be familiar with that, given the work that I do too also. And I wouldn't have been involved in B1G1 without H. So
yeah.
Huge.
No, and nothing annoys me more than we work hard enough for our cash. When we give it, we want to know that every dollar that we give is going to the cause that it supports. And nothing annoys me more than when 50 or 60 cents in every dollar is taken for administrative costs, when I don't believe it actually has to be that high.
Yeah, absolutely. Choose Mindful Oz.
Exactly. That's it. Very good. I would have said that myself. I also think that, just as thought leaders, there are some brilliant people in the world. I'm a very big fan of the Dalai Lama. I'm a very big fan of the Interior Minister for Education I've just lost the country, just next to Laos. Anyway, it'll come back to me in a moment. This is the downside of old age. But yeah, I think I like to take inspiration and information and ideas from a whole load of different people. And I think we can have our favourites, but I also think that it's really important to be open to new teachers. Some of the most important and powerful lessons I've learned in my life, Matt, I've learned because I've been taught by the kids at Super Camp.
Yeah, I agree. And we mentioned this last night. Some of the biggest learnings I have ever had have been from people who have jumped in here and asked questions, people who show up to trainings, to courses, they're there to learn, but they teach me more than I swear that I give them. It's incredible.
Yeah, absolutely.
H, favourite podcast or book, which might also lead me into Gillespie.
Oh, yeah. Look, David Gillespie, big fan of his. He wrote the book Teen Brain. And yes, I am doing an interview with him next Tuesday evening. It's a free Zoom session. So jump on Facebook and look on either Heather Yelland or Green Super Camp Australia, or just have a look on Maddie's site. He's brilliant at sharing things like that. That's a really great book and a fantastic resource to anyone who is raising children and trying to juggle their use of technology, particularly relevant at the moment, which is why David has agreed to join us for that session. But to be honest, if I had to pick a book that at the moment is my favourite, it's a book called Creating a New Economy of the Heart.
I'm going to write that down and share that, because then it'll remind myself to punch into it. Creating.
I just can't remember the guy's name. Creating a New Economy of the Heart.
Awesome.
And yeah, it's very much about saying, look, we have to challenge the traditional kind of institutionalized way of doing business and doing leadership and those sorts of things. We need to be prepared to disrupt ourselves, and we need to be prepared to listen more and be open to a completely different way of doing life and business and economics and politics and so forth.
How relevant's that right now?
Absolutely.
Any superpower in the world, what would it be and why? I'm so intrigued in this question all the time, and people think I'm just taking the piss, but I'm so intrigued in people's answers.
Gee, I mean, I'd love to go for the really simple one of, if we could just all love more, but that's way too simple. So let me go a little bit behind that. I think if there was a superpower, it would be the capacity to be compassionate to people's unique context. And what I mean by that is, if you diss me, instead of going, well, isn't he a rude little prick, and dissing you right back, that I go, okay, that's not what I know of Matt. Generally, my experience of him is he's incredibly polite, and he's, very engaging and very enthusiastic and open. So I'm curious about what's happening for him that would cause him to diss me. Or even just to look and say, okay, here's a young man running a business, running a charity at a time where there's the cash flow through our economy is really constrained. So perhaps there's something happening there that I could be understanding of or supportive with, that's putting so much pressure on him that he's choosing to diss me. I just remember I had an experience. I don't know whether I've ever told you this story, Matt, but when I was working as I lived in New Zealand for about 14 years, and I was running a big social service agency there. And we were implementing a new way of doing child protection where we removed the perpetrators rather than the children. Pretty radical stuff. And I remember one day going into a family's home, and there were 7 children in this family. And the child that was identified as the problem, he was a gifted child in terms of his capacity to tear around and generally disrupt. He was a very energetic young lad, but he was also the pressure cooker valve for the whole family. But I walked into the house, and there were 6 photos of the children lined up on the wall. And I remember thinking to myself, my God, no wonder the kid behaves the way that he does, because he's just excluded at every turn. His photo is not even on the wall. I didn't say anything. I just looked and I judged. And somewhere in the course of the conversation, the grandmother was part of the discussion, and I said to her something about, what do you know of this family, and what do you appreciate about your son and his wife and their children? And she said, oh, I love all of the babies. In fact, she said, I'm at the moment, it's my job to get the picture of this little child fixed, because he was kicking a football in the house, and it hit his photo, and it fell down and broke, and it nearly broke his heart, and it nearly broke our heart. So my job is to get that picture fixed so it can go back up on the wall.
Yeah.
And I was only in my probably, I don't know, early 30s, I think, at that point. And I thought, let this day be a defining moment for you, Heather Yelland, that you don't judge until you've sought the context.
Yeah. Can only do with the information we've got in the moment we're provided. But what about we go and find out all the information?
Correct.
Yeah. Yeah. And that can be correlated into many things. I think doing the field that we work in at Mindful Oz, I think that's a really big one. You know,
Absolutely.
go out and find out all the information we can so we're better equipped to deal with the situation.
Yeah. And you know, I think, Maddie, that's part of what makes your work so powerful, really, is that you take the time to gather all of the information, but you also encourage people to take the time to be present to those that they're supporting and uplifting.
Yeah, I think it's so important. H-E, advice for the younger self.
Advice for the younger self.
For your younger self, young little H-E, grew up on the farms. What would you tell her?
I would say this: all the stuff that you think that you hate at the moment will cause you to be brilliant at what you're good at later on.
Amen. Wow. Love that. You don't have to tell her much more at that stage. Love that. What's next for Heather Yelland, and where can we find you? I know I've put some links up, but what's next for you? I know we're going through a little bit of a difficult time at the moment, but we've got creative freedom, which is dangerous when you leave Heather Yelland with time to think. What are you going to create? What magic's next?
Look, I think there's a few creative things happening. I've run out of excuses to not write the book, so I think the book will be a key focus over the next couple of months. I've actually got a conversation happening with my publisher one day next week. Can't remember, to put a structure around how that will happen. So looking forward to that. I think that the other thing that's for me, Maddie, is I have a bit of a tendency, and it's probably largely the result of having grown up in an environment where I felt like I kind of had to be independent and fend for myself because I was a bit weird and no one. And so one of the consequences of that is that I've tended to do things not so much on my own, but I've taken the bulk of the load. And I've realized that we're never, ever going to build a different world unless we go into collaborations and partnerships. And, that's part of the reason I want to work with people like yourself and Sally and, a whole raft of different people who are doing awesome things in the world. Because it's only when we come together that we can make a completely different raft and float a completely different way of doing life. So I'm also quite committed to really investing in those partnerships. I don't want to go out the front and be the leader. I want to use my capacity for leadership and my certainty about who I am and how I move in the world and the difference I was born to make, to uplift and nurture the future leaders, and create space for them to step forward and know that there's someone there that's got their back and can provide that guidance and mentorship and unconditional belief. That means that when they struggle to see the good in themselves, they know that there's someone there who can see them bigger than maybe they can see themselves at the time.
I love that. And what a segue for me to share this quote from H-E. I want to do my part to ensure that every person I influence feels better about who they are and what they have to offer than they did when they first met me. Even if that means believing in them initially more than they believe in themselves. That is the same way we met, H. That is why I've been able to do a lot more in the last 18 months than I did prior to that meeting you. I can only imagine how much this has impacted and changed the way people perceive things and treat things, I guess, in this time of difficulty. So I want to thank you so much for coming on here tonight, but I'm not going to leave people with my quote at the end of this. I need you. What have you got to say to finish off here, H? Leave them with something brilliant.
You could have given me some time to prepare. Here's the one that comes straight from my heart: is everything that you need to know about who you are and what you've got to offer the world is within your heart. Your only work is to sit in a place of silently loving and holding that so that the true you gets expressed.
I can't wait to watch this episode back. I just want to thank everyone for tuning in tonight. I know we've still got big engagement. We've been on here for over an hour and a half, so that goes to show the level of
time flies.
I mean, it does, and I think we're going to have to get H back on. There's just so much that we can learn every single time, and I can only encourage people out there to follow the work and to join in on the work. I mean, be a part of the world, be a part of Green Super Camp. There's so many opportunities for people to get involved. Go to the Power of You. Get involved with Elevating Families and the Connection Zone, the Parent and Teacher, all these different programs that H runs. I mean, the more time you can spend around people like this, the better that you will be and the better the world will be. So please, everyone, I'm going to put the links in this afterwards, and I encourage everyone to follow her the same way I did. And now she can't get rid of me, so bad luck, H.
But wouldn't love to, buddy.
I'm just so grateful for that tonight, H, and I'm glad the technology worked, because that was an absolute brilliant an hour and a half for me, and I can't wait to watch it back. So everyone out there, tune in Sunday night. We've got Kevin Hines all the way from Atlanta, Georgia. That's going to be a different conversation to this one. That one will be worth tuning into as well. That is one of the most powerful stories I've ever heard. He's going to tell it, but also the way in which he lives well every single day after that Golden Gate Bridge jump survival that he had, and how he manages to stay well, living with bipolar disorder and chronic suicidal ideation every single day. But not only that, go around the world and spread love, hope, acceptance, recovery, and management every single day with as many people as humanly possible. So another inspiring episode coming on Sunday. Join in. Stay well over the weekend. Look after yourself. And, thank you so much for joining us tonight. And thank you, H.
You're welcome. Thanks, everybody. Take care.